Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
All right, guys, welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101, as always, presented by our good friends over at ScentLok. ScentLok, in my opinion, is the gold standard for especially whitetail hunting. They have built a full toolkit with the BE1 series, and now they're adding things in to really complete that toolkit, like belts, gloves, backpacks, really to create a toolkit to get you all through the season. If you have not checked out ScentLok, I would highly recommend you do so. I got a message the other day, Kris. I got a message and they said, "Did you know that you start every podcast with 'all right, guys'?" And I'm like, man, I need to change that up, but I don't know how to change it up. Like I went to just now and I'm like, what do I say? And then I just went, "All right, guys." So I guess I'll just stick with it. That's my sign on, I guess. I've got Kris Chain, season report, coming to you live from turkey camp. I'm a little jealous. He just showed me around the cabin. I don't think the elk was killed there, but still a nice addition.
No, that was a Colorado elk.
Very cool. Now, I have raved about season report for a while now. If you have not checked it out, I would highly recommend you do so. Let's just get this out in the open before we begin. But you can go to seasonreport.com, use code hunting101 in all caps, and that's going to make the entire platform of Season Report just $10 for you. But highly recommend you check it out. At least give it the free run, and then you can use that code hunting101 to make it just $10 for an entire year. Kris, man, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Things are progressing along. We got through that winter that was rough on everybody, and now turkey camp's here, and things are looking up.
Yeah, winter was no fun, and it's kind of hanging on. You know what I mean? It's one of those times where I'm all for snow. I absolutely love snow in like December. But now that it's April and it's still dumping, I'm like, come on, man. I'm ready to get out and enjoy some springtime.
Absolutely. It snowed on me on the way out, and that is quite rare for Virginia.
Yeah. No, I went to Total Archery Challenge last weekend in Oklahoma, which, by the way, was phenomenal. Thank you for all of those that came out and shot the course, checking out the bare bows, the trophy ridge sites. We had an absolute blast. When I woke up Thursday morning, it was dumping snow. And I mean dumping. And by the time I left to go to Total Archery Challenge in the afternoon, it was 70. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Woke up the next morning in Oklahoma, back to 30. And I'm like, man, come on.
Yeah, that's how it is here. But at least we're getting some rain because we've been so dry for so long. The place I'm staying at, you got to cross a river to get here, and it's always a little dicey on whether you can cross it in a truck. And I started a little late because I needed to watch some of the guys that were going a little bit too deep of water. It's quite a show.
I bet. One time I had a buddy, and we had a similar deal. A place where we hunted, you had to cross a creek, and my buddy said he was driving my pickup. I don't remember why, but I was sitting in the passenger seat. He was driving. And he said, "Do you think we can make it across there?" And I said, "No, I absolutely don't." He said, "All right." Boom, just went right. I'm like, come on, man. There was water up to my windshield. And I'm like, I went home. I'm like, Dad, listen, I wasn't driving. He's like, I know. It's worse that you let your idiot friend drive. And I'm like, well, you know.
Yeah, that's one of those excuses, like, I got it. And then you deliver it, and it just, I made this situation even worse.
Falls on deaf ears, yeah. He's like, well, listen, I know, Isaac, and the fact that you gave him your keys is dumber than you driving. And I'm like, come on, man. I tried, you know.
But on the other side of that, as a parent, are you starting to pick up those pieces of wisdom? And you're like, oh, that's why they were able to sniff me out.
I actually hate it because there's times where, like, my kid will do something and I'll get mad at him. And I'm like, wait a minute. I used to do the same thing, and I'd wonder why Dad was mad, you know? Like, I would get so frustrated. I'd be like, Dad, it can't bother you that much that I'm kicking your seat, you know? It can't bother you that much. And now my kid does it. I'm like, God, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, now I know why my dad was always upset.
See, mine is when I was up to something I shouldn't be, my dad would come home and just look at me for a second or two and, what'd you do? I don't know what you did, but you did something. And he used to piss me off because he knew it. He just didn't know what it was, but he was dead to rights. And then I'm starting to notice that with my daughter as she's starting to do things. She's like, I don't know what you did, but you flushed a cup down the toilet. Great.
Yeah. No, dude, speaking of that, I was having plumbing issues and I'm like, what in the heck, dude? I ran a snake through it. And I'm like, this is insane. So finally I pulled my toilet. Like I had to pull the toilet and there was a shampoo bottle. It had made it all the way through so you couldn't see it, couldn't. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. My kids, man. But luckily we're not here to talk about kids because we could go on telling horror stories about our kids, how they pee on your 3D targets and, all that good stuff. I had one guy, he sent me a message and he had heard me tell the story about my boy peeing on my targets. And he said, proof, man, or it didn't happen. And I'm like, I got proof, man. And next time I was with him, I'm like, look, showed him a picture. And sure enough, my kid was outside whizzing on my raccoon target. So I'm like, I got proof to every story I tell, man. Kris, give us an update on season report, man. You have dropped some bombs here in the past, 3 months or so. Really, man, some things are taking off. You have partnered strategically with our good friends over at Hal. Some big things happening in the season report. And I'm telling you guys, if you're not on the season report train, you better get on because it is phenomenal. But walk us through some of those changes, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. At the end of the hunting season, I realized that there was, I always had this vision of being kind of a total almanac for what's around you. But at the end of last hunting season, when almost everybody had already done everything and there was just a lot of sitting around and waiting, I realized it was a perfect opportunity to just forecast dates for next fall and next year. And so that was a cool addition that I rolled out where, everything changes, but it changes subtly. And so I put a disclaimer up front and just be like, hey, your favorite spot that you have saved on your personal dashboard, this is probably what the dates are going to be, but there's a big disclaimer that says this is just for general planning purposes only. It's still up to you to come back and double check once it gets a little closer. And then over the winter, I buckled down and I filled out all the lower 48 in gardening and foraging. And it's not absolutely complete, but it's everything that you could grow from your Lowe's or Home Depot, location specific, different plant growing zones, what you should put in the ground when you should, if you're starting from seeds, when you should start your seeds, if it's advisable to increase the plant hardiness for that plant, that tells you right there, really quick and easy to interpret, and then put it in the ground and when you should anticipate your harvest. And so what I'm really building, I think it's come to the point where describing it as a modernized almanac is a little bit better of a term because it's everything that you can go in the woods or grow in your own garden and bring to the dinner table.
I personally, and I've talked a lot about this in arrow building, but I think gardening and foraging is one of those arts that's been lost upon the sportsman or the outdoorsman. Sometimes we think we're like, well, I'll handle the killing. Like my wife can take care of the veggies. And like we're in every literal sense, meatheads, myself included, 90% of what I eat is meat. And then the fruits I eat are not the good fruits and vegetables. But anyways, what I mean by that is it's been lost upon us. And then you look at these guys and we could certainly start naming some off, but you look at some of these guys on social media and you're like, man, these dudes should have been born 100 years ago. Because they 100% live off the land. If it's not meat they killed, it's meat they raised. And if they're having potatoes, they probably grew them. If they're having asparagus or corn or whatever else, they probably grew it. If they're having mushrooms, they probably found them. All of these things, you're like, man, these dudes should have been born 100 years ago. Well, that is an art, I believe. That's part of the outdoor life. And my kid come home from school. She's 10. She came home from school, and in her science class all year long, they've been doing a gardening project.
Awesome.
Where they go outside like 3 hours a day, which is exciting for me because I'm like, cool, my kid's outside doing stuff. But she come home pumped up about gardening, and she's like, Dad, why can't we do this? Why can't we go outside and get strawberries out of our backyard? Why can't we have blueberries popping up? Why can't we have okra? Why can't we have this stuff? And I'm like, we can, and so she is fired up about this. And then you drop the gardening side of things, because I have no idea how to garden. I'm like, dude, I kill anything I touch. Not in a good way. Like my wife's like, water the flowers. I water them one time and somehow I mess them up. But, and I'm like, I don't know when to plant, how to plant. I don't know. I would love, my favorite thing, man. I love venison steak tacos. It's like my favorite thing in the world. If I'm cooking wild game, it's usually like, even if it's bear meat, venison, whatever. I love making fajita tacos out of wild game. Well, then I started thinking, I'm like, man, I like salsa, like fresh garden salsa. And I'm like, why don't I have a salsa garden? Well, A, I don't have any idea how to do it. And B, I'm lazy. But again, you've given this information in a way where it's like, we can get back to that art. Like we can get back to that pure sense of growing what we're eating, killing what we're eating, foraging for what we eat. And it's awesome.
I appreciate that. And, I'm starting to hear from a lot of different people that are saying the same thing. Like, I never was a gardener, and wow, I use this service for the hunting, but I started a garden this year. Or homesteaders are really getting involved with this because it lays out their entire year kind of on one personalized platform. And then, the foraging is what has me really excited. And, the inspiration you were mentioning, like those tacos, and could you make your own salsa? The foraging really was inspired at deer camp here last year, where, I always had it in the back of my mind, but we were lucky enough to find some chicken of the woods mushrooms, and my buddy got a deer. And to have a meal where you have fresh cooked tenderloin and fresh sauteed mushrooms, and you're sitting on the porch and you can point in either direction exactly where those foods came from. And it was such an incredible meal.
Yeah. And that's the way that life should be. But again, for many of us, it's just been lost. It's been, and I don't want to call it a midlife crisis because I'm not in midlife yet, but I'd say 2 years ago, I started this journey of really trying to simplify my life in every sense. Archery, let's dumb down the equipment. Went from a drop away to a whisker biscuit, from sidebars to a single front stable. I mean, just everything about my bow. Let's simplify it. Let's not overthink stuff. Let's just get back to the joy of archery. And then it was, let's move to traditional archery, because that's an art form in and of itself. To building your own arrows, to, simplifying and really honing in on the art of what we do and how we do it. And then this comes out and I'm just like, yeah, I need to be more of a well-rounded sportsman, to where when I'm feeding my family, I can say, you just picked those, you just pulled those, you just whatever, you brought those in and washed them yourself, whatever else. Because that's the way life was for me. I remember going out helping my grandmothers, pull veggies and go inside and wash them and prepare them for dinner. And there's something primal about that. Even if it's not the harvesting and killing of an animal, there's something primal about, we grew this, we pulled this, we prepared this. This is our food. And again, it's just something where I'm trying to get back to the art of everything that I do. And what kind of kicked that off, I was at a mountain archery fest, and I met this guy, and he runs Arrow Junkie is what it's called. And really, I'll be 100% honest, being an outdoorsman, the logo got me, the appeal to arrows and Sasquatch carrying out a deer. I mean, that's what got me. But then he pulled me in and we started talking, and he's like, man, I sell everything that you need to make your own arrows at home. And he's like, because that's just something that has been lost upon us, is making your own arrows. He's like, so I sell all the tools you need to build your own arrows, saws and planers and all of these things. If you're into, wooden arrows, all of the stuff that you need to crest your own arrows, all of these things. He's like, I want to equip people with everything they need to build their own arrows, so that people can get back to the art of building arrows. And I'm just like, you're right. Like, I've always been, I'll fletch my own arrows, but from start to finish, never built my own arrows. And so, that's just kind of where my life has brought me. And so I was personally really excited about this because it helps you get back to that primitiveness of your own food.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And, another layer to that is there's, it's a lot healthier, not just on the food that you're intaking, but it keeps you active. It keeps you outside in the sun, moving stuff. You're constantly exercising. And like, once you slowly shift your lifestyle over to sourcing your own food as much as possible, that really gets us back to, in my biology class, I talk about our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, and obesity is largely a modern problem. And it really just kind of brings you back to kind of the hardware that is running our bodies. And it just makes you feel good throughout the whole year, mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And hey, I got news for you. This COVID problem ain't going away. Like, we're not in the far foreseeable future. We ain't going to see a drop in meat prices. We're not going to see a drop in veggie prices. We're not going to see, more things available to us. And it was amazing to me, all these people that didn't like wild game. Well, when COVID hit and they couldn't buy beef, or beef was outrageously expensive, but there was months where you couldn't go to Walmart and buy a steak. You couldn't go to Walmart and buy a pound of beef.
Yeah.
It was amazing to me, these people that, I don't like wild game. I can't believe you would go and do that kind of stuff. Come to you and say, hey, you think, do you have any extra meat for right now? And I'm like, you know what? I sure do. But these types of problems, they're not going away in the far foreseeable future. And, and we will be the ones that keep eating good. I can tell you that.
There is a certain level of comfort. Obviously, it's difficult to count on. If I'm being completely honest, if I had to go completely on my own two hands, it'd be bad quick. But it is nice to know that you can kind of spread it out and make things easier over the long haul that way.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not telling you that I don't go to the store. I love a good ribeye. I'm not telling you I'm 100% wild game because I love chicken. I'm not telling you that at all. I'll throw in some beef. I'll throw in some chicken. I'll throw in some pork. But like you said, it's wonderful when everybody else is freaking out. And I'm like, hey, babe, what do you want? You want bear meat? You want duck? You want fish? You want, what do you want to eat tonight? Got some pork chops from Texas. What do you want? It's an awesome thing, man. And it really does bring that sense of, no matter what crumbles around us in the world, we've got this, we can. And I told my wife at one point, like in the darkest of things where things were crazy, I'm like, well, listen, sweetheart, all we got to do is run downstairs and grab a couple backpacks and we can live in the mountains for months. I'm like, I keep enough mountain house meals and, I've got my stove and everything there. We can run out to the mountains and live for a couple months if we have to. We've got the sleeping bags, the tents, we've got all that stuff. We're fine. And there's just that sense of just, we got this,
I think you make a really good point. And it's kind of been dawning on me lately that the world is, anybody who's paying attention can see it's changing in some subtle ways and some large ways. And there's all this talk about autonomy of supply chains here in North America, energy independence, feeding and approaching 8 billion people on the planet. There are some really large problems. And I think, to kind of take a tangential step of a motivation for making season report, I think our wilderness areas are probably going to be under pretty intense pressure coming up pretty soon. And one of the things that I'm finding rewarding with season report is I'm hearing from so many different people, non-hunters, hunters, everybody who finds this useful. And it feels like it's got the potential to really grow into a big tent. And because everybody who cares about any of these different pursuits really cares about the same thing, keeping a healthy ecosystem around them. And I think by making that big tent, maybe we can stave off, some new developments that clear cut a forest or some habitat or this plant going in here, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that's where the issue lies is You just said it yourself, is people think, oh, you're hunters, how could you ever do that? Well, I can promise you I care more about the deer than you'll ever care about the deer. I care more about the turkeys and their population and their health than you ever will. But you think because you refuse not to consume them, because you refuse not to go out and chase them, because you think that you're the one that cares about wild places and that you care about the animals. But I promise you, as sportsmen and outdoorsmen, we care more about the animals than you ever will know. And it's the same for people who, are out foraging or who are out gardening. They care about the wild places more than people ever understand.
Yep.
Again, I think it's just a really cool thing. But I thought about that for a minute when I was back on the arrow junkie topic. I thought to myself, if somebody's really passionate about seeing people get back to the art of building their own arrows, why not give them a one-stop shop for all the stuff they need to build their own arrows? And that's what he did. And that's what you do. You're passionate about seeing people live off the land, about getting back to a natural way of life of hunting, harvesting, foraging, gardening. And not only are you saying, oh, I care about people doing this, but you're giving everybody the tools they need in order to do it. And that right there just shows, you're putting your money where your mouth is, you're putting your time where your mouth is, and you're showing, I not only say these things, but I'm so passionate about it that I'm going to give you everything you need in order to do it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's really become quite rewarding in the last few months, hearing feedback like that. And that we've talked about everything that's happened thus far, but looking forward, I'm slowly introducing fishing. I'm not quite so confident to say fishing is there and I'll put it on the front page. It's there. There's a handful of states that I have fishing regulations put in. But at this point, I'm kind of focusing on coastal states where it really matters a lot more, where there's both freshwater and saltwater and so many regulations to sift through. And once we grow a little bit and can expand, fishing will be right there as a fourth pillar in local food opportunities.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. And I don't know if you're a fan of Alone, the TV show.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Alone.
Definitely binge that more than once.
Yeah, I'm like obsessed with it. And somebody was like, what is season report? And I said, think about it this way. If somebody on Alone could have it, they would last forever.
Definitely help.
Yeah. No, but yeah, going back to the fishing, talking about like sustaining life. Like if you really want to live off of the land, off the water, off of foraging, hunting, gardening, fishing is a large portion of that because of the healthy fats. You don't get that from a lot of wild game. And that's why I've been lucky enough to have 2 winners of Alone on the show. And one was Jordan Jonas, and he killed a moose, which was the first ever big game harvest on the show, and he was literally starving to death, what's called protein starvation, because he wasn't getting enough fats. And so if we're really getting down to let's live off the land, live off of what we kill, what we catch, what we pull up out of the ground ourselves, fishing is going to play a large part of that. Because we need those fats from fish that a lot of wild game just isn't going to give us.
Certainly. And that's so I don't know if you know this, my background is molecular genetics, and the research I was doing was focused on muscle, and specifically the metabolism of muscle. And so it was one of those additional layers to season report, thinking about all these different food sources with respect to their biochemical profile and like how they are actually going to influence your fiber type and stuff like that. And I could go on in that direction. I'll stop, but you're exactly right. I think foraging, gardening, and hunting is good, but it's incomplete without fishing.
Yeah, and I told one of my buddies had this idea. We got on the addiction of Alone, and one of my buddies was like, "Well, dude, let's just head into wherever, the Ozark National Forest, or that's where I'm from, so that was the first place that hit our minds. But let's head into wherever, and let's just carry a gun and water and just live." And I'm like, you're barking up the wrong tree there, partner. Because you get in a place like the Ozark Mountains, there's not a lot of vegetation to eat. And then you didn't even mention fishing pole. And I'm like, if I kill 4 squirrels, I can make it for a little bit. But I'm going to have to catch some fish too. And so this whole idea came about, and we haven't done it yet. Because we have young kids, and for our wives to say, you're going for how long to do what? Like, it just doesn't work. And so,
I'm walking around in the woods with a gun, and we'll see what happens. Isn't it really good? I'll see you on Monday.
yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Especially when, my life revolves, my life, everything about my life now revolves around the hunting industry. And you look at, we're trying to plan a vacation, and I'm like, well, I've got a total archery challenge that weekend, or I've got a mountain archery fest that weekend, or there's an event or I'm hunting that weekend. I'm gone this. And so for me to add an additional, hey, I'm going for a week and we're just going to see if we can live. Probably ain't going to fly. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
Now, before we move on, let me give a quick thank you to our friends over at Three Rivers Archery. Three Rivers Archery is your longbow and recurve experts. They've got fast same-day shipping. I can promise you this. They're absolute number one in customer service. You can call Three Rivers and talk to them for hours, getting answers to all of your traditional archery questions. And they know the answers because they use the gear, they hunt with the gear. They're just experts. They're the number one in customer service. They're also the world's largest supplier of in-stock traditional and primitive archery gear. So you guys got to go check out our friends over at Three Rivers Archery. Go check out their website, threeriversarchery.com, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. If you're a traditional archer, you're probably familiar with Three Rivers Archery. And it's just one of those companies, again, getting back to the art of hunting. They get back to the art of it. Go check out our friends over at Three Rivers Archery. They're also good friends of Bear Archery. Kris, you are currently, did we have our additional guest come in yet? Our guest star?
Isaac showed up.
Give us a quick introduction to Isaac as he gets in the frame there.
So this is my buddy Isaac, a fellow BHA member, actually board member of Capital Region, and we met at a pint night about a year ago
in Richmond,
and then went hunting a few times.
Very cool. I don't remember who it was. I did a podcast one time with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I'd have to go back and look who it was, but man, they were a stinking riot. He got on and he was like, "What, am I drinking alone?" And I'm like, "Well, it's 2:00 and I'm working, so yeah." It was just one of those deals. He was a riot, man. But man, thanks for jumping on here.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Excited to talk with you guys. As Kris and I were talking, I'm a little late because I was making the journey out here. Kris and I don't know if he's already mentioned this, probably has, doing a little turkey hunting. I was thrilled to see a couple hens crossing the road on my way here.
Nice.
So
good.
Got you distracted?
I got distracted a little bit. I might have gotten on a little bit of a tangent doing some pre-scouting here for our day tomorrow. But yeah, just Kris and I were talking. I'd love to come on and talk to you guys a little bit about something we're doing here in Virginia coming up this summer. We have an annual event hosted by National Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. It's called Muster in the Mountains. It moves around on the East Coast every year.
I don't like mustard.
Have you been to Muster?
No, I have not.
So we're looking to do it in Virginia this year. We've got a great venue, Devil's Backbone Brewery, kind of located centrally in Virginia in the mountains, Nelson County. Arguably, and probably in my opinion, one of the most gorgeous parts of Virginia.
Oh, it's gorgeous, yeah.
It's going to be July 22nd through the 23rd. So Friday night, everybody will come in. We have campsites and everything reserved. Wade and Rachel with Elevated Wild, who you might have run into in the hunting world here. They're going to be they're on the board with us, and they're going to be there doing some cuisine for us, which is really a privilege because they are super talented with taking any kind of wild game, any kind of foraged, mushrooms, berries, whatever you can find in the woods, and turning it into like 5-star meals. I mean, they are incredible.
I love people that not only like talk about, cooking wild game, but can throw it down. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
We see a lot about John Dudley and his cooking abilities. And, we're like, okay, you can cook, whatever. But at a total archery challenge one time, he pulled out, he has his little trailer that he pulls with him. He pulls out the biggest, fattest steaks you've ever seen. He throws down some asparagus. He brings out some cheesecake, and we're like, holy crap, man. And it was 5-star good.
Yeah.
I like those guys.
I went to a deer processing class from Wade and Rachel, and it was very informative. It was super cool. I realized some things that I was doing majorly wrong. I wouldn't say majorly, but you see somebody break an entire deer down inside. I mean, he could have easily done it inside of 20 minutes, whereas I might take more close to an hour or something. It was really cool to watch him work. But then some of the stuff that they had prepared, like beaver, I think they had some elk sausage and beaver sausage, and it just so many different types of animals all on one charcuterie plate. It was all different preparations and different flavors. It was incredible.
Oh yeah, man. One time we were, I saw a guy one time break down an entire deer without gutting it. And I was like, how are you going to do this, man? And sure enough, he did it. And I'm like, wow. I'm not going to try to emulate it because I couldn't, but
that sounds like you're playing with fire a little bit there.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, actually, funny story. You said you got distracted by a couple hens. That was my buddy from Liberty Ranch in Oklahoma. And last time I hunted with him, I said, hey, I'm about 30 minutes out. Well, I didn't show up for like 2 hours. So I get there. He's like, dude, everything okay? Like car trouble? Like what happened? And I'm like, no, I just spotted some deer in the field out here. And so I stopped and I was watching, and it was right before sunset. And I'm like, I pulled up the maps and I saw that you guys owned the property. And so I tried to put a stalk on them and, whatever. And he's like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, anyways, funny story, but, same with the hens, get a little distracted. But now you guys are at turkey camp. Where are you at?
We're in the mountains of Virginia.
Mountains of Virginia.
I'm not going to give it away past that. We're going to keep it vague.
I was going to drop the coordinates in the description.
we'll have you out here in the fall.
Yeah. What's your game plan for the weekend? Walk me through that.
So I know we're going to, well, first off, this kind of a reciprocal education here, because Isaac's definitely a fowl hunter and he's done a little deer hunting, but just never really had an opportunity.
Yeah.
Hasn't gone enough to find that perfect opportunity yet. And so we were out on some public land in the fall, and I put him on some deer, and a million things led to us not getting one. But he's returning the favor and educating me, because I'm horrible at turkey hunting. I've only done it once, and I know that I talked to one, but I've never seen one in season. So
you're supposed to use calls. You're not supposed to talk to him, right? That's probably why I didn't come in.
I was just chasing him in the field. Isn't that how you do
it? Yeah. No. What was I going to say? Oh, full disclaimer. I'm not a turkey fanatic. I don't get fired up about birds. I'll go a couple times a year. Last episode I had on Kris Parrish, who's a product manager from Bear Archery. But he also is a NWTF Hall of Famer. And he's like, well, I'll be in Kansas at the end of the month. And he's like, I'll get you fired up about turkeys. And I'm like, come on with it then. Like, if you can get me fired up, let's do it, man. Cause I need something to be fired up about in the spring. Here's my opinion. You guys can completely disagree with me if you want. I can go to Oklahoma. I can go to Texas. I can be in hogs in about 2 hours, and I can kill as many hogs as I want. I can kill them any way. I can put Tanner right in the corn if I want. Doesn't matter. You can kill them however you want to kill them. And there's no limit.
Everything.
Yeah. There's no limit. There's no, it gets dark. You just pull out the night optics. I mean, there's no limit. And so it's such a fun time. Like, if I have an opportunity to hunt in the spring, I would rather go chase hogs where there's no rules and there's no limits rather than go out and kill one bird. That's just me though.
I would say, and Kris might have done me a little bit of a service there, making me sound like I'm more of a turkey expert than I deserve to be told. But
hey, that's when you just ride it, man. You're just like, yeah, hey, whatever.
I don't know. For me, I find that oftentimes with turkey hunting, the most fun is in the failure. It's in that failure point, because it's such a mind game. It's such a chess match out there with the turkey that if I walk away and either the bird, I busted the bird or something didn't go right, or I've even missed turkeys before shooting at them, I never walk away feeling disappointed. I feel kind of transformed by the experience, and it's so much fun to learn from the failure and take that to the next day or the next hunt. And this is applicable to all hunting, but I feel like turkeys in general really teach you lessons at a deeper level than a lot of other wild game do. Just because I almost feel like they're thinking, like, it almost feels like turkeys wake up and go, there's a hunter out there trying to kill me today, and I'm going to make him feel pretty bad about his morning. And I feel
don't. I just like killing, though. I think that's my problem. I did, however, though, this afternoon, actually, I told Kris I was absolutely just destroying a Chinese buffet. And he said, "You going to make it through the podcast?" And I said, "Don't worry, dude. I got coffee." But I was on my way home, and I had my 5-year-old in the back seat. And I turned to come onto our road, and in the back field, I see what I thought to be turkeys. And I'm like, oh, crap. It's turkey season. There's turkeys in my backyard. And I instantly turned into a turkey hunter. You know what I mean? So I ran inside, I grabbed my recurve, and I run out the back door, and I start heading the way that they were. And I get there, and they were all turkey vultures. And I'm like, dang it. But I was pumped.
I've done that a couple times. You're driving down the road, you're like, oh, man. And then you're just like, oh, no, that's not.
I was pumped, though, for sure. What do you guys think? Give me some input here. And if you have an answer, if you have an idea, shoot me a text, shoot me an email, find me on social media, because I got to figure this out. In our hometown, we live in a little town, country town, 7,000 people. There's a huge water tower. And it's smack dab in the middle of town. So it's not like something, and I've looked around too. Like drove around the water tower, like kept eyes open for something that had died, and I can't find anything. But the last 3 days now, there's been 30 plus turkey vultures on our water tower. And I can't figure out why. They're not swarming it. They're not flying around it. They're all sitting around our water tower. Any ideas?
Maybe they're just putting a finger in the wind, trying to see if they can catch a scent. Because that reminds me of last time I was out here, I came about 2 or 3 weeks apart, and it was about 2 weeks apart. And on the first visit, there was this cow making this noise. I mean, it sounded like it was dying in a field far away, and it just would not stop the whole time I was out there bow hunting. And I was like, that can't be good. And then I came back about 2 weeks later, and there were birds all over the place, but also downwind. Ooh, it was a little rough,
a little fragrant.
Yeah, it was. I think I had caught it at the moment and the resolution.
You haven't been drinking the water in your town, have you?
Hey, you want to know something? My wife, she's a true crime junkie. Like, my wife listens to podcasts, and I guess 2020 now, I was going on a bear hunt in Maine, and she's like, holy cow, you're driving through Boston. I'm going to come with you. We got to go, see where the Salem witch trials were and all this stuff. And I'm like, are you serious? But she's all about it. And first thing she said was, something's in our water tower. Like, there's somebody dead in our water tower. And I'm like, sweetheart, I think you're going a little too far with this. Because I don't think anybody could get somebody up into the water tower. Anyways, no, I was curious to know, like, it's been driving me crazy. And I have no idea why.
You want to go climb it?
Not really. Not really. I don't want to get arrested, but no. Now, when is tomorrow opening day there, or?
Yeah, youth was last weekend, but opening day is tomorrow.
Very cool. So, Isaac, you're kind of doing the guiding there for Kris. Am I right?
In a way, I don't know. I think Kris and I, we've hunted together before. We're a good natural team. I think he and I have a pretty similar philosophy in terms of how we approach our hunting.
Yeah, I got a good lay of the land here, and then he'll bring some calling. The only real calling I've tested is to my dog, and so if my dog gets good and pissed, I feel like I'm doing something right.
You just talked to the birds, remember?
Yeah.
Chris gonna bring a couple cups of coffee, try to have a conversation with them while we're out there.
There you go. You just said something that piqued my interest. You said we're kind of a good natural fit. We've all been on a hunt with somebody, and I'm not going to name any names, but we've all been on a hunt with somebody, and you're like, okay, I'll never go on a hunt with you again. Whether it be you don't like their hunting style, you're a run and gun type guy, they're a slow it down type guy, whatever. But A, how do you go about finding a good hunting partner? And then B, how do you know when somebody is a good hunting partner?
I would say that's a great question. And I've hunted with numerous amounts of people. I mean, as a young guy, especially in Virginia, where we have great public land opportunities, but we also have a lot of private land opportunities. You got to get to know people, and you got to make friends in the hunting community if you want to have access to the full range of what Virginia has to offer. And so for me, I mean, a lot of it is before the hunt, right? If I can sit down and really gel with that person before we even consider going on the hunt together. And I know you can't control that every single time. Sometimes you catch an invite, this and that, you just show up, and who you got's who you got. But I feel like, getting to know that person before, and just seeing if you're, swap hunting stories, see what they're, see what really gets them going. Like you and I just were talking here. You said, I'm a killing guy. I want to go kill hogs, and I'm saying I want to fail on a hunt, and what does that mean for if you and I went on a hunt together? Kind of piece those things together. I don't know. Kris might have a completely different.
No, I think that's a good point. I think after all that said, I think the biggest thing with me is just if it's going to be a firearm season, if I just tell people, look them in the eye and be like, hey, I'm going to do this by the book. We're not flashing each other, safety on. If you have a problem with that, we're going to not even start today. No harm, no foul. But the second something like that goes wrong, I'm walking. I think if they can handle that tells me a lot about where their mindset's at.
Yeah. No, the reason I asked, though, is because, I've got some really good friends who, I'll go on vacation with you. I'll have you over for dinner. Like, we'll do whatever we want to do together. But I'm not going to go on a hunt with you. We've tried it. We don't mesh. For whatever reason, we just don't click in the field. And then I've had guys where I don't like you, like I'm not going to hang out with you. But we get along super great in the field. We have the same hunting philosophies. We have the same standard of what we want out of a hunt. Same standard of game too. I found that to be an issue. If you're hunting with somebody who, is only holding out for booners, and you're like, dude, I'm killing a forky, it's not going to work. But perfect example. And I love it when I talk about him, because usually I get a text, but my friend Aaron Zeesh, he's absolutely like the last person that you think you'd go on a hunt with, because he's one of my best friends, but he's crazy. Like, he's sporadic. You know what I mean? Like, he's just off the wall, always doing crazy stuff. And the first time I went on a hunt with him, I'm like, how's this going to work? You know what I mean? Like, dude's going to be out doing something dumb, cartwheels in the field or something. And, but I tell you what, dude, when the door shut on the pickup, it was like, we're hunting. And don't giggle. We're hunting. And then as soon as he killed it was a hog hunt. As soon as he killed the hog, it was right back to just fun and games. And I'm like, that's what I want. Like, I want somebody in camp who's going to be fun, who's going to be, joking around, who's going to be, peeing off the back deck naked and doing crazy stuff. But I don't want that in the field. And there has to be that switch. There has to be that, okay, now it's time to hunt. And so that's why I asked, because there's been a couple times where I've ran into that issue where I have to tell somebody, I'm like, listen, we can't hunt together no more. You know what I mean? You're a friend of mine, but we can't hunt together no more.
Sometimes you can find hunting partners by not hunting. I got a buddy who I go backpacking with, and he and I, we run at the same gear, although he probably shifts down a little bit for me. He's kind of a billy goat, but we will just put miles on. I mean, out in Colorado, we did 2 14ers in a day one day. And, I broached the topic of hunting together, and he has no interest in killing an animal, but he does like the idea of elk meat. And so we've worked out a deal one of these years coming up when family situations are right. I'm gonna go out to Colorado and we're gonna go deep in the mountains and get an elk and just we'll split it. I'll kill and we'll haul it out 50-50. But he's the only other person I know that would go to that high altitude and just do the hard pack out.
See, that's my kind of friend right there. Hey, I want to go hunting with you, but you do all the killing. Like, okay, let's roll.
I'll give you his number.
I had a friend one time. We had gotten to a group of javelinas and just an insane amount of javelinas. Pretty much as fast as you could shoot and reload, there were javelinas. And we got down on a group and we were laying down ready to shoot. And I said, okay, you count. And then we'll shoot. And he said, okay. Bow, 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 bow. And I'm like, serious? Like I didn't get a shot off. And I look at him, I'm like, yeah, we're not hunting together no more, man. Because you like killing as much as I do. And that ain't going to work, you know. Now, one question, Isaac, I know Kris has been on the show. One question that I ask everybody, Fred Bear was big on his field notes. And so I like to ask people, and we'll make this turkey specific since it is turkey season, since you're the Kris proclaimed turkey expert.
You're welcome.
What's one turkey hunting tip you got for us? Something I can take and put in my back pocket and make myself a better turkey hunter with?
Well, it's probably the tip oldest time here, but when you're turkey hunting, in my experience, if you feel like you've waited long enough, wait another 15 minutes and then wait another 15 minutes. And then maybe 30 minutes after that, you've actually waited long enough.
Yeah.
Because I've had turkeys, that I think are blown or they got hens somewhere else and they're wandering in the other direction. I stand up and they're 10, 15 yards away and I just busted them and they're gone.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not always going to talk all the way up to you. So, patience is the game. And that's tough, right? Because your instinct is, I got to find them. If I'm not hearing them, if I'm not seeing them, they're not here. And that's not always the case. And I'm sure tons of turkey hunters better than I would say the same thing. But that's the kind of thing that a lot, when I was first getting into it, a lot of guys would tell that to me. And I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. I promise. And then I'd get out in the field and I wouldn't do it and it would backfire. And so, and I'm sure tomorrow we might even do this, make the same mistake. But that's the thing that I would just try to emphasize to people to keep in the back of their mind is be patient. Don't be afraid to make a decision, make a move, but, do it with decisiveness. But also do it with keeping in mind that, patience is king out there.
And if you make that same mistake, Kris is going to look at you and be like, dude, you said this yesterday. Like, I know.